Joan, are you looking for the meeting minutes?
Am I looking for what?
The meeting minutes, or I'm sorry, the treasurer's report?
No, I have the treasurer's report here.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. Have you started the meeting?
Yes. Oh, so you guys didn't hear all that?
No, we
Okay,
did
apparently
not.
my mic needs to be on.
That's the
I
first
thought the
thing
mic
I
in the
heard.
ceiling was picking it up.
It should be.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
way to do it.
So do you want my report?
Yes, please.
Okay, the historical commission expense account is still at $1,000. And oh, I forgot to write down what the name of this other account is. The account that originally had $25,000 in it and now has $19,095, which is the same as it was last month. And my question is, did we ever pay the surveyor for the work they did at the cemetery? Because this isn't showing any money coming out for anything like that.
I thought we had paid them.
We've only paid, what, 1,500 for the window at Holy Angels last year and the 3,500 to the surveyor, so I'd say 19,900 should be right on the money.
Oh, okay, okay.
And Gary has not called me, and I think by now they would have called me several times if that bill hadn't been paid, so.
I'm sure they would have. Okay, all right. Because, you know, with me being away for 3 months, you know, I kind of don't see those things happening, and I just see the monthly report when it comes in from the accountant on, you know, where we are at. So that's my report.
Wonderful.
Everything remains the same.
Okay. Fantastic. Ed, I wonder if we can mute your speakers so there's no
I am
echo.
muted.
The speakers? Should be at the bottom, right? You want me to see?
Good?
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, good. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the DCR interpretive plan for the Upton State Forest, and Ellen Arnold had reached out to us and she mentioned that it's all complete and she wanted to thank the Historical Commission. So she asked us for our email address, which I think Ed provided to her. So that's good. That's a good thing to have completed.
Completed by the state.
Well,
All was good.
I think the report's completed. They have to do the signage and everything. They have to execute the things in the report still, I think, but yeah, so that's good.
The plan has written.
As written.
Complete.
Yeah, yep. So the next item is the World War I monument on the Common. Tom Baer had reached out to me and asked me if the World War I monument was going to be moved because of the rotary work. And I reached out to Joe Layden and he confirmed that it's not going to be moved. It's going to stay in the same exact spot. So that's good. We don't have to worry about that. The next item on the agenda is the Heritage Park sign. So that is complete and it looks beautiful. So they fixed it and I think they backed it with aluminum. I heard so.
They put a aluminum pan in the back.
Yeah.
To give it more strength, so, and they dug and put a mulch bed in a big oval around it, so the mowers won't have to go that close to it.
Okay, so that's good.
I guess one of the guys took his hand off the mower handle and he was swatting a bee or something, and took his hand off, the mower turned, and the handle hit and broke the end of the sign right off.
Wow.
But you can't tell, you can't see any repair work at all.
No.
Same as it did when they first started, so they did a nice job.
Yeah, they did an excellent job. Yeah.
I hope that's the last time. Interestingly, I found in the annual town report of the Historical Commission that the original sign was installed somewhere around 2013, 14, 15. So that original
Okay.
wooden sign wasn't very old when it brought it.
No, it wasn't. Surprised.
Yeah, 10, 11 years. I think it was 2012, and I think 2002, we were talking about replacing the sign is something new because it was all rotted. So,
Huh.
10 years for all the work the guy put into carving.
I know,
it,
right?
You know, it's kind of, we should have probably put it in the museum and made a real sign for the.
Yeah.
Craig,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes. No.
it's Joan. So do you want me to go ahead and get that plaque to put on the back of it about, the fact that it was done by the BVT, students?
I
Um,
make a motion that Joan procures a sign plaque for the back of the Heritage Park sign, which we have discussed in the past, to be placed on the sign commemorating the BBT students who created it. Do I have
Okay,
a second?
and
I will
to
work.
amend the motion, can you also include mention of the guy who originally created it?
Yes, I will. That's, Keith Oral. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I second the motion.
Second. Where are you gonna have it, where are you gonna have the sign made?
Over there in Milford, probably at the place that you went.
Signs
Okay,
plus.
Signs plus, yeah. I would rather go down with it, like,
It's
Yeah.
right next to St. Mary's Church, not St. Mary's, Sacred Heart. Right there
No,
on Route
no.
16.
the
No,
place down
on South Main.
on South Main Street. I'll take you down there if you'd like. Ed and I were down
Okay,
earlier this month, and it was very impressive.
yeah. Okey doke.
I was glad to go with you.
I'll make it a plan.
Okay, sounds good. So all those in favor of Joan creating the sign?
I,
Aye. All
Aye.
those opposed?
Aye.
Okay,
Who was the second?
unanimously. So the next item on the agenda is the 3 Centennial Court public hearing.
Craig?
Yes,
Who? This is my meeting. Who was the second for that motion?
Donna. Donna seconded it.
Donna. Okay. I just couldn't tell from the screen. Thank you.
Yep. I wanted to try to share my screen. Let's see if I can do that. Screen window or tab. Well, this looks different than I'm used to. Entire screen. Share. Okay, I think I can see my screen now. Yep, okay. Sort of, okay. Where is? Okay, so this item is in regards to the 3 Centennial Court building. So I had done a little bit of research after our last meeting just to see what history was related to the building at 3 Centennial Court. So unfortunately, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but I found out that the building was actually quite historical, which was unbeknownst to me because, well, when you look at the pictures that were provided to us, it really doesn't look like much at this point. It looks pretty ramshackled and rotted and whatnot. But I had done some research into it, and it actually was quite historic. So it's really my fault that I didn't do my due diligence and kind of do a lot more research into the building ahead of time. I did it after the fact.
I knew 3 Centennial Street is the moved Warren Tavern or Centennial Court, but we just talked about we just talked about tearing down the garage part, not about tearing down the actual Warren Tavern building, which is a different thing entirely, correct? Because the building that we looked at with the 5 bay garage thing, which was what we did the demo delay, isn't the same as this building.
Well,
Unless I'm very mistaken.
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding was that this was the building up until 1940. And then around 1950, the guy changed it into a 5-car garage bay. That was my understanding, but I could be incorrect.
I don't think that's true. This building is still there. This building is still there. And it's apartment buildings, I think. This is part of the like multi-apartment building. The building that we're talking about is like around the corner. It's like
Really?
behind
That's
this building.
It's across from it or around the back of it or something.
So this isn't the building that is,
I'm 90% sure that the building that we approved for demo delay is separate building on that same, yes, correct, is a separate building on that same lot. It's like farther, it's behind the building that you just took the picture of.
This is the building that he wants to tear down.
Yeah.
That's the garage. That's
Yes. That's not the same building that you just showed the picture of. They are different buildings. So you do not need to castigate yourself. You did not tell them that it was okay to tear down the Warren Tavern.
because what I was thinking was that this was the, that he transformed this building into this building.
No.
That is not the case.
That's not the same.
There would have been a hue and cry from us if that was what was happening, but that is not what was happening.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Okay. So then, I don't know. So now
These
we're
are
back.
pictures that were sent today. And
Yes.
that's the same pictures we looked at last month's meeting.
Yeah.
This is a beat up old garage. It's about ready to fall over anyways. And it used to be a 12 bay and I guess 7 of them were torn down years ago. So this is all that's left of it. It doesn't have much value.
Huh. Okay. So then that gets me back to square one because then I don't know the history of this building then. But in any case, the owner had sent Mike Antonellis pictures of the building. Because that is part of the procedure for the demolition delay, that the building inspector has to request photos from the owner.
Here's a
So
better picture.
I have all the pictures, so I'm just gonna run through them all on here. Let me see if I can get full screen on this. I don't know if I can. Oh, and I'll just zoom in. Oh, there's full screen. Okay, so this is the first picture, or one of the pictures. This is another picture of the roof. And if you want me to slow down or zoom in on anything, just let me know. This, I assume, is the upstairs. This, I guess, is the stairwell. This must be the first floor, I guess. And this is an outside picture. This is another picture of the back. This is the inside roof again, apparently. And the outside, front, side, and the back. And the back again. So those are all the pictures that were provided to us from the owner. So at this point, he's kind of done everything that he needs to do. We had voted during the last meeting that it wasn't historically of historic significance. So I think all that's left to do, we don't really have to take a vote. All that's left to do is for me to reach out to the building inspector and say he has approval to demolish the building and go ahead and demolish it. So that's all that's left to do. Yeah, we don't need it. And so, yeah, and one of the things we can, I think I might add an agenda item for the next meeting. One of the things that I didn't realize is if we want to have a public hearing, which I think is probably a good thing to do, just to let the surrounding neighbors know about the demolition, we have to, on that first vote, say that it has some level of significance, even if it's very small. That will get us to the step where we can have a public hearing.
Public hearing it, published in the paper.
Yeah, so when you get to that step, you publish it in the paper, and
I don't know if you have to send out notices to the abutters.
You do.
Yeah.
yeah, so we'd have to send out notices. But I think it's a good thing to do, just to give the public a chance to, yeah, it's the law. really. But it has to, we have to declare that it has some sort of historical significance to get to that step to have a public hearing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it does have a historical significance, but
yeah,
much.
not that
One of
much.
the things we discussed earlier was, A, that the owner should be present at the meeting that he's asking for the demo delay at.
Yes,
So that he's asking for approval to demolish the building.
yeah,
And the owner wasn't present last month. He
Right.
Never came, never called in.
Yeah.
The second thing that you observed is that we have a 10-day restriction to call the public meeting or to have a meeting or something, and that maybe we should amend that.
yes,
And I'm fully in agreement that we
Okay.
should amend it to give us enough time between our meetings. I think your 90-day proposal is way too long.
too much. Maybe,
But
how much do you think?
Since we're discussing demolishing a building and we are in no intent of rushing into any decision, I don't know where the 10 days came from in the first place. It just seems that you gotta call a special meeting, we gotta rush all about to find out about the building. I think that's too quick.
Yeah.
I think 45 days would be
Yeah.
much more than sufficient that we have to have our meeting. If we need to then call a public meeting, we can schedule a public meeting and we can investigate the history of the building in the meantime.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate because we'll definitely, if we have a 45-day window, we'll definitely hit our month meeting.
So we can potentially talk about a warrant article for the November meeting to amend the demo delay bylaw that allows us 45 days to hold a meeting and call a public meeting if necessary.
Okay, yeah,
Craig,
yes.
can you guys see my screen or is it overlapped by your screen? I shared my screen, but since if you're
Get out of here.
sharing,
I'm sharing here.
Just look up. She's already got it up.
Oh, you have it up. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
can see your screen.
see,
Catherine.
this is how Centennial Court looks, or
Oh,
3
so
Centennial
that-
Court, the Warren Tavern building looks right now. It's got, I think, 3 condo units or 3 apartments in it. You can see if you Google it, you can see the inside of them from, like apartments.com or whatever it is. One of them was on the market not too long ago. They don't look, historic at all inside. They look like modern apartments, but that's the building that you're talking about.
You're
So
100%
that's not the building that he's tearing down. He's tearing down the associated carriage house / garage that was there when it was part of the Knowlton factory, because Knowlton was the one who bought these and moved them around and used them as various accessory buildings to his factory.
Okay. Yeah.
They were
you're-
originally
you're
all
right.
joined together as the country's largest tavern or whatever thing they decided it was. And then he broke it up and put them in different parts of town, and this one was here. But that carriage house building is not the original Warden Tavern building or whatever, so you don't have to worry about that, at least.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Catherine. That's exactly that building. I didn't realize that. Okay, great. Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, because you can see the windows there's the same amount of windows there and they're in the right spots. So, okay, cool. So that's one less thing to worry about. Okay, cool. So that is that. So I will take an action item to go ahead and say that we will go ahead and not issue a demo delay, and he can go ahead with what he needs to do.
We should have a discussion with Joe in the next couple of weeks about a warrant article for November to modify the demo delay.
Okay,
To at least extend the 10-day period to allow us time to react to it.
yes,
To think about it and have a meeting about it before we call a public hearing or decide a public hearing is not necessary.
right,
See if that is permissible.
okay,
The other thing that we could discuss in conjunction with it, which I've been reading a lot about on this mass listserv email site that all the historical commissions have signed up for, is to contemplate extending the demo delay from 12 months to 15 months or 18 months or something like that. Might want to discuss that with Joe and the select board before we create a warrant article for November
okay,
and see what their thoughts are on taking that step.
okay. So the warrant article would encompass the changing 10 days to 45 and changing the delay from 12 months to 24 months. Is that what we're thinking?
You don't know if 24 months would be the right.
That's too much?
approach at this time.
Okay, just say extend it and
isn't
leave it
too long,
open-ended
but it's trying to get public support to vote on
to
to pass
say
it.
it, okay? Yeah.
Going from 12 to 15 or 18 might be a leap we could take.
18 is what most of the towns are doing.
Well, most of the
June,
towns,
June.
most of the towns are 12. There is a set of towns that are 18, and there is a very small set that are 24. And some of the 18 are looking at going to 24, according to the stuff on that list there of email.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll say 18 for now. And
18 question mark, and we can talk with,
18 months.
like I say, Joe and the select board about what their thoughts are.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'll add that as a, so yeah, so.
I'm still concerned with, somebody comes to us and wants to demolish the Norwood House.
Yes,
And we say, that's unacceptable, we'd like you to think about it, restore it, do something with itself or somebody else. What approach do we take? Other than saying, we're gonna slap a demo lawyer on it, the guy says, I'm gonna wait 12 months and a day and I'm gonna tear it down. I'm not sure we have a strategy. And maybe, again, that's a discussion with the select board to say, what kind of strategy could we come up with to try and save one of our truly historic buildings? Because you can't save everything.
right.
So just something to think about and something we may bring up if we can do that kind of meeting with Joe.
Yeah, because I guess the other argument, because I mean, one of the most obvious things would be to ask the town to buy the property, but you need a big enough window to make sure that you have a town meeting during the demo delay process so that you could put a warrant article to see if the town would buy it. But if you have 18 months, you definitely have at least two town meetings within that frame.
Okay.
we've got a historical building. We don't know what to do with now.
Yeah. So, okay, so the next item on the agenda is discuss local historic district. I didn't really have anything for that item. I don't know if anybody else did.
No, I don't.
No. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Historical Commission mailbox. We received two items in the mailbox. One is the 2024 annual report, which has all the reports from the town for 2024. And the other one is the State Register of Historic Places from 2024. I guess you could put that in, we could put that in a binder.
I don't have the reference.
Yeah.
Good reference.
A lot of those are in the drawers underneath those that they filed before.
Oh, okay.
One of those kind is full.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it takes up a lot of room.
Yeah, that is.
Big book, but, so we got those two things. So the next item on the agenda is the Holy Angels paint and roof updates. So I received an email from Joe Layden today stating that there are no plans for Dennis Westgate to paint the building until after we receive the structural analysis.
I think it's important to mention that 2 weeks ago at the town meeting, there was a warrant article to raise $34,000 for taxpayers to fund a supplemental engineering study of Holy Angels, using the same company that did the original engineering study in 2019. So they've asked them to do a comprehensive update to that study to include the costs of repurposing the building. So that study, I think they anticipate could be done by the end of June or sometime in July, not too long from now. And part of the reason for it was discovered that a considerable amount of siding on the left side of the building, as you face it from the street, has separated itself from the building. And to put paint on it would be a waste of money until they determine what the problem is and what the fix is.
Right.
And that's when I emailed you and said, doing a grange on it.
Right.
And then a full exterior restoration of the building would be appropriate, but
yeah,
whether the town will pay for it without a use of the building is a whole nother question.
Right.
And that's why it's not being painted in a rush, because there's no point in putting paint on it if you gotta replace half the siding and
right.
the roof is leaking and it needs roof work.
Yep. So yeah, so that's the other part of it. The roof is leaking, I believe, but it doesn't sound like Joe's gonna act on that pro bono offer from Heritage to to repair the roof either until we get the structural report. So I'm not gonna press that issue.
You know, the government could accept a $400 million claim without any discussion, but to accept a free repair one. Historic building
Right.
requires months of anguish and paperwork.
Yep.
I don't have an easy answer to that. Do we even know that that roof is leaking?
Not 100%. I just suspect that it was because the last time I was in there, I was looking with my back facing the altar. I saw the spot that we had repaired, but I didn't remember the spot on the left side that was damaged. But when I was in there last time, I saw that it was more damaged. So I suspect that it's leaking. I think it's a smaller leak than the one that was on the right side, but I do
Because we
suspect
did
it.
repairs on both sides.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure
I think
100%.
leave it be until the selectmen finish their engineering study, have a discussion about it, and then if we need to pop our heads up again and saying, the historical commission wants to do something.
Right.
should-
We agree, it has to be, something has to be done with the building. That's all we can say.
And that may only be 2 or 3 months from now, so.
And so the other part of that email was Joe was concerned that I am on the historical commission and I'm also on this 140 Arts, which is now a 501c3. So he's asking, is there a conflict of interest there? So he had me reach out to the ethics board to find out what kind of feedback they would give to me. So I sent the letter out today. And when I get it back, I'll just give them the letter, but I might in the future have to recuse myself of talking about the Holy Angels Church in these public meetings going forward, which is not really a big deal, and voting too. So
And I don't know for certain, but I would contemplate that you can be involved in the discussions, but you couldn't participate in the vote to make any decisions on it.
yeah, it might be just voting. So
And that may not be the worst thing.
not a big deal. So I will report back to Joe when I hear back. So continuing on, we discussed a memorandum for Pine Grove Cemetery and Bradish Cemetery closure. We had met with the select board, I don't know, like last week or the week before, and they seemed amenable to us creating a memorandum of closure of Pine Grove and Bradish. So I had drafted up just a preliminary memorandum, and I believe Ed and Russ had worked on kind of tweaking it a little bit. So I don't know if you guys have any updates or you want to still work on it.
I sent you, but
Oh, you did? Maybe I haven't checked it. No,
No.
maybe I didn't see it.
I think it's fine the way that he wrote it. I don't know if we added one more thought. I think the probability is you've got to share that with the select board.
Mhm.
And they may want to tweak something, and then there'll be a back and forth.
Okay.
Unless they say, geez, it's perfect. Let me see if I can find. If I send you one this morning. Yeah, right here. The only change that Russ and I see should be added. Quote, any new or replacement stones in Bradish or Second Cemetery, Pine Grove, must be approved by the historical commission prior to its purchase and or placement.
Okay. And is that in the one you sent to me?
That's the email.
That
I sent
update?
you. I'm reading.
Okay, perfect. Okay, cool.
So that should be
So-
incorporated in the memorandum of understanding.
Okay,
Anybody who wants to replace a stone or repair a stone or add a new stone, they've got to come before us and say, this is the stone we want to do. And we can say it's fully appropriate or it's not appropriate at all.
okay.
As a control to prevent somebody from putting
Inappropriate.
letters in gold and
Eiffel Tower,
It's just,
Tree Tower,
I-
a beacon on it.
Russ and I did go over, I mean, maybe you did, I went over last week and looked at the stone that the gentleman placed last summer. And it's a light gray granite stone, it's rectangular, it's about this big, and it stands up about this high. That's the stone.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not an upright stone. It's not completely out of place,
It's low profile,
low profile.
so,
Sits up on the left side of the hill, so it's all the way to the left.
yeah,
So it doesn't change the view of the cemetery
Right.
considerably, so.
so we won't raise a big fuss about.
Yeah, so I'm suggesting there's nothing to breathe a fuss about. Get the letter of memorandum of understanding with the select board.
Okay,
And the DPW. Put in a note that we would have to approve the placement of or replacement of any stone in the future. And that should take care of it. And as of last week, the DPW is now responsible for all burials,
Yep.
headstone placements, etc.
Yep.
In that cemetery.
good.
The cemetery commission is now an appointed body, and according to the language of the 1989 article that created the DPW and the cemetery commission, they are falling back on that language, which allows the commission to be responsible for selling lots and managing perpetual care funds, and I believe that's the extent of it. So the DPW is fully responsible for meeting with any residents to sell lots and to manage burials
Okay,
and to maintain the cemetery.
fantastic.
One of the comments that Dennis made and that Joe made is with the DPW responsible, we don't really need a memorandum of understanding or any type of agreement. And Craig and I said, well, if the DPW director leaves and the town manager leaves and new people come in, do we need to have this discussion every time somebody comes and goes that you've agreed not to sell lots in these two cemeteries? And they agreed that a memorandum of understanding between the select board and us would resolve that issue.
Yeah.
So that's why we're pursuing a written document that we could fall back on in the future.
Sounds good. I mean, even with the 1981 bylaw that got lost, I didn't even know that that existed. So having a memorandum is probably important.
Well, I was on the cemetery commission 3 or 4 years ago, and we hired a landscaper to go in there and clear all the brush. And we didn't know that the historical commission was responsible for that cemetery, and obviously they didn't because it had been, again, abandoned.
Yeah.
I will discuss that when the cemetery stuff comes up, so.
Yeah, because after 20, 40 years, things get forgotten. New folks come in. Okay, sounds good. So I'll work on that memorandum and get that over to the select board. The next item on the agenda is the first floor of the Racine building has been appropriated to the Historical Society for use of a museum. That was another item that the Historical Society discussed with the select board when we met with them that day. So it sounds like they're going to have a nice museum display of the museum items that are up on the second floor. They're going to bring down to the first floor, and they're also going to have a nice display of blacksmith tools and boot shop tools on the first floor. So that'll be good. Yeah, it'll make some use of the first floor of the.
It's painted so
Christine.
well outside.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they've got that nice,
I know.
nice handicap ramp going in there. Nobody's
Well,
using it.
Yeah,
right,
that's the other
exactly,
thing. Yeah, so
exactly.
we'll get to use the ramp too.
Before the library moved over to.
Just about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as Matthew said, it's good for the wagons going down for the books, the carts going down. That's what it's
To throw them
good
away.
to get to the parking lot.
Yeah,
Probably $5,000.
Yes.
yeah. So it'll be good to get some use out of that ramp.
Good.
So the next item on the agenda is the Historical Society is going to hold a table in front of the Knowlton Racine building on Memorial Day. And Scott Garland had reached out to me, who is the new chairman, by the way. Tom Bear had resigned at the picnic.
Chairman or president?
President, chairman, I don't know, maybe president,
President.
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 yeah.
Good.
So yeah, he seems very good. Yeah. He gave a nice speech at the picnic about the things he wanted to achieve. They all sounded good. So one of the things was he wanted to honor someone in Upton's past every month. So we'll have a celebration for a person every month, which sounded like a good idea. So yeah, so he was asking for volunteers to hand out flags out in front of the Knowlton Racine building. He's going to set up like a little pavilion, and he wanted people to man the pavilion and also hand out flags. So
Well, Heritage Day?
no, for Memorial Day, it's coming Monday.
Oh.
Yep. So if anyone's around, you can feel free to reach out to Scott and do that.
We're going to be in the program.
We're in the program.
Oh, okay. You're marching?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, cool.
Have you ever been to the parade?
Yeah, I was going
Me?
to ask that, Kathy.
Yeah.
I've been, and if, in fact, yeah, because I remember you gave a speech at the cemetery in Maplewood.
Every year,
one time.
every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm doing it.
because you do Maplewood and Joan does
Years.
the first cemetery, right?
Don't, oh, who was that? Steve.
Well, it starts at Lakeview, it goes to Maplewood, 2 stops in Maplewood.
Oh, I should
He
have.
reads the thing about, his grandfather, and then we go to First Cemetery,
And,
and I will be reading the.
oh, you're gonna read
Yeah,
this, okay.
Joan's under the weather, so she's not sure her voice will project on.
Oh, okay,
She may do it. One of us will read it.
great,
And then we come back and form it to the school for the start of the parade at 10 o'clock, so.
okay, wonderful. Sounds good. Well, hopefully you have nice weather for that. It's gonna be
Yeah, it's supposed to
clear up.
be 70 degrees,
Oh,
probably
wonderful,
cloudy.
great. Sounds good.
I got the middle school band coming.
Oh, wonderful.
Selectmen have invited the selectmen and the clergy.
Yes, Father Larry comes down, I remember,
And yep,
and they shoot the rifles and all that too.
yeah.
The Nipmuc band, no?
Huh?
The Nipmuc band too? or
No,
No,
the
just
middle school.
middle school.
They switch off every year.
Oh, do they?
Mendon gets Nipmuc this year, we get Nisco. Next year, we'll get Nipmuc and they'll get Nisco.
That's beautiful.
Scouts will be there.
What did you say, Catherine?
The scouts will be there too.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, Scout Launch.
Yeah, maybe we can figure out who the scout leader is over in Mendon. So, okay, well, that should be wonderful. That should be a great event. Let's see. Oh, speaking of Scott Garland, the next item on the agenda is a donation request from Scott Garland for the 250th anniversary celebration of the Bradish Cemetery that he did for the Shot Heard Around the World. His email to us was, "Hello, Historical Commission. The Historical Society has provided an event called The Shot Heard Around the World for the town of Upton to honor the 250th anniversary of the battles at Lexington and Concord. Upton played a pivotal role in the event, providing 60 soldiers to march to Roxbury to repel the British forces. For the event, we provided 2 wreaths, 2 lanterns, flags, and ribbons, which cost $100, a costume for the reenactment, which costed $125, a reading of Concord by Whitney Loper, which cost $50, a refreshments that costed $40, and the total cost of the event was $315. So we were wondering if the Historical Commission would consider assisting us in a donation to help cover the finances of the event. Thank you." So I wanted to relay that note from Scott. I don't know if we feel that we want to cover it or if we want the Historical Society to cover it out of their budget, but that's,
What's your opinion?
I think it's fine to cover it. Personally, $300 isn't too much out of our
Cover it or donate a piece?
donate a piece of it. Whatever we
I
feel.
make a motion to donate, what, $250?
Okay,
$200.
200.
That's 315,
200.
right?
The total was 315, but we were thinking maybe we just cover a portion of it.
Yeah.
I'll second your motion to donate 200.
Okay, so there's a motion to donate $200 to the Historical Society. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, I didn't hear from Catherine or Patrick, but
Honestly, I have like mixed feelings about it. I don't love that he like spent a bunch of money and then is like asking us for us in retrospect instead of like talking to us about it first. But I understand that he put that together really short notice too. Like,
yeah.
I'm
he put
fine
it
with
together
giving him
super
money.
quick.
I just don't like it when people spend money and then are like, by the way, could you give me some money back for this thing that you totally didn't know you were spending money for?
Yes,
That's
I
kind of
agree.
not great.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah,
I also agree with Catherine on that as well. I just hope we don't like set a precedent where like he does something and then comes back and expects like, oh, you guys can pay for this, right?
yes, I agree. Okay,
So we've agreed to provide 200, and you can provide a cautionary note to them with the 200.
do we have enough votes to do that? If Catherine and
I would
Patrick.
support that. I would support money with a cautionary note of don't do that, talk to us first.
Okay, okay.
Same. I
Okay.
agree as well.
So, okay, let me add that. So it sounds like the action passes. I'll add an action item to notify Scott that we will donate $200. But in the future, please ask us ahead of time so we can discuss provisioning funds.
Now, I don't know if there's a way to do it. You've got to figure out how to do this,
How to do what?
how to donate $200.
Don't we just take it out of the?
We don't do anything. We have a town
Yeah, it's
account.
not, so
Oh,
I don't know because it's not an invoice that we like committed funds to
That's
and
correct.
then we get invoiced for it and then we pay money for it. You know what I mean? Like normally that's how this system works. We make a vote that we're gonna spend a certain amount of money. The contractor, whatever, does the thing. They send us an invoice. We pay the invoice. But I don't know how we donate money. I don't know if we can donate money. You might need to talk to somebody who knows more about the finances part of this before we try to give them money.
I think you can take in hand, the commission has agreed to donate 200, subject to the logistics of donating 200 and the technical approval of doing that. So if Joe said she can't do that, then you don't tell Scott anything.
okay, so don't tell
So
Scott. Okay,
an email to Joe saying we were asked by, we have tentatively agreed to, is there a mechanism where we can actually do it?
okay.
That will protect us. And Catherine and Patrick raised a good point that somebody does this in the future, it should be, you asked us a couple of months before, but he threw this together real fast.
Normal business procedure.
Hopefully
You don't buy a
you're
pig in a poke.
Yeah, hopefully you're prepared to pay for it out of his pocket if nobody agreed to it.
He said he was, yeah. So if not, I email Scott about this. Okay, sounds good. So,
They ought to be a handbook. But this for,
yeah,
Joe Reagan's a handbook.
yeah. what it is.
Is he advised, advised?
okay. Sounds good. So I'll email Joe about that. And next item on the agenda is the first cemetery updates. I don't know if Ed, you had any updates?
Updates.
Oh.
Let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen. All right, so as everyone's aware, over the last 10 to 12 months, I've been doing work on analyzing, evaluating, and mostly documenting First Cemetery. So I have reached the point where we have a booklet with a picture of First Cemetery. I plan on adding a second picture of the lower cemetery after the DPW cleans it up. So this is the upper cemetery where most of the burials are. The lower cemetery, interestingly, we now know is where all the first burials happened for the first 30 years, 30 or 40 years. So this area here was, I don't think anybody ever knew that. We've added a tentative list of all of the burials from town records where there are no gravestones. So assuming that all these people got buried somewhere, we would think that the town was burying people in common burial grounds, that many of these people, and I think this is in chronological order. So we have a burial in April of 1736, one in June of 1738, and 5 in 1740. And I know one of the town histories I read said the first burial in First Cemetery was in 1740, but I would suggest it may have been 1738 or 1736. It will forever be unknown. So there's probably 100, 101, 102 that are not in, they're not in any record, they're not on any gravestone. So 4 or 5 or 6 of these might come out. We might decide they're probably buried in Bradish or in Pine Grove, and we'll take them out before this is done. Table of contents will get replaced with an index, so let me scroll through that. Begun trying to collect the histories that have been written, especially by, what's his name in the 1960s, Mr. Fay, Daniel Fay. Work that was done around 1980 by the Historical Commission, and putting a history at the front of it. Picture of the marker that is in front of the cemetery stating this is the site of the first meeting house. I believe there's a marker out by Grove Street that says the site of the first burial ground, so I've got to go get a picture of that. And then there's a page for every gravestone, every headstone, I should say. And the page looks like this: the person's name, the number in front of their name, if you can see it on the screen, is the number from the Guerriere and Almont Engineering Survey of the cemetery. So it is intended for this booklet to go with that map showing the location of this burial. And then it begins with a brief genealogy of the individual. When they were born, if that's known, who their parents were, and when they died. And they won't be in the book unless there's an Upton death record, because it's an Upton gravestone. So, pictures of the stones are at the bottom of each page. Headstone on the left, footstone on the right, if there is a footstone. And I'll be working over the next, hopefully 6 or 8 months, trying to replace the photographs here with better ones. I've cleaned about 70% of all the stones. I got about another 30 stones to go, I think. And I'll try and get better pictures. Some of it has to do with camera work, which I've never been an expert on camera work, but getting the right sunlight, getting the right angle so you can read the lettering and read the stone. And the second thing that I tried to accomplish with this booklet, let me get to one here. So here's Thomas Webster. And you can see where it starts with his name at the top. It then gives his brief genealogy of who he was. I cannot find his origins at all, so I don't know who his parents were. Interestingly, I discovered yesterday in land deeds that he was a sleigh maker. Russ and I discussed this morning. A sleigh maker was some component of the weaving and loom, moving the weft or the perpendicular threads through the fabric as you weaved a piece of cloth. So he made the wooden sleighs, and I have not found a picture of what they look like yet, but I had never seen this before in my life, a sleigh maker. So that's the early industry of textiles.
Where did you find that thing about him being a sleigh maker? That's so interesting.
Googled it and found 2 or 3 sites, a couple of dictionaries, an old dictionary I found it in. So
Was it in his property records?
it was in 3 of his deeds when he was selling land. It was
Interesting.
not in any of the deeds when he was buying, but when he was selling his lands mostly to his children, it mentioned his occupation in several deeds. And the first one, we could not figure out what the word was, but the second and third were written a little more clearly, and it would conventionally today be spelled S-L-A-Y, maker. But back then, A-I-E.
You'll find that word a lot in crossword puzzles. If you're a crossword puzzle aficionado, they use that word a lot. It's an old English.
English word, yeah. So right below the person's genealogy, if they were in the Revolutionary War, I am listing their Revolutionary War service, and that's right in the middle here. So Thomas Webster was from Upton, a private in Captain Benjamin Reed's company, Colonel John Rand's regiment, enlisted in 1780, discharged in 1780. So he served late in the war, where most of the soldiers from Upton served the day the alarm went out, April 19, 1775. In the middle of the page, between the blue bands, is the stone's condition, the motif of the stone. Let me go to a better one. So the motif In this particular case is a winged skull. The stone's condition is poor with the lower left missing, cracked. The footstone exists, is in good condition, and the dimensions of both stones. So in the future, if somebody finds pieces of it, won't know how big the stone was, I've reported that here. And the
Wonderful.
last line in that section comes from the 1990s work that this commission did on restoring some of the stones. So this stone back then was in 3 pieces. It was epoxied and reset in October of 1998, the headstone on the left. So that work has been, it's probably 98% complete. I talked to Russ today, and Catherine and Joan, anybody else that wants to offer. I would like to try and add to each one of the males, the adult males, where they lived in Upton. Even if it's approximate what part of town they lived in, if it's exact, if we know what street and where they lived. Donna, if you know any of these people from the 1700s, you got that phone number, so we could call them up, that's where they live. So I think that would be nice for someone looking at this book to know where in town they actually own land. And I'm expecting that 2/3 of them at least will have to go to land deeds and see if I can figure out where they live, but I like reading land deeds, it's very fascinating. All right, so
Tom
that-
Bear said he knew somebody who was like an expert in land deeds.
Who does?
Tom Bear.
Oh,
He,
well,
he pops into the
Oh, yeah.
historical society.
Search through his records.
Yeah.
I think
I
I'm-
know, you know.
You know what I'm talking
Nahum,
about?
over Nahum.
I think I'm an
In the
expert.
Fisk-
in
Fisk-
reading land.
This family lived up on Fisk Mill Road, and
Who's the
That's
official
family.
administrator?
Well, Pat Morris,
Morris?
Morris.
I want my father's separation papers. It's so old.
He
and
should be
some of
able
it's
to-
ripped.
Help you.
Yeah, standard form 180, it said.
Good.
That's-
So the second thing I did was I took that booklet and I removed only the pages of damaged stones. So this booklet here starts the same way, but it quickly goes to any stone that's pictured in this booklet. Like the first one is Aaron Warren. The stone is just completely gone. I found a note yesterday that the top of the stone was at the Historic Society, but I had asked Tom Bear last fall and we searched the Historic Society. It doesn't exist. Whatever the top of the stone looked like. We've got stones like this one where there's only a couple pieces left, and I'm not even sure whether the top piece here and the bottom 2 pieces go together. The good news was it had the year and the age, and it matched Thomas Webster. That's the only reason we know it's Thomas Webster. We've got stones like the footstone on the right, and I'm projecting this thing here. I don't need to project. Okay, that's better. So the stone on the right is broken in a couple pieces and can't be put back in the ground with any value, and the ends of it don't seem to match either, so it can't even be glued back together. There's a piece of the top of the footstone missing.
So did a lot of them, did most of these have a headstone and a footstone?
At least 80% of the stones in that burial ground have a footstone.
Really?
And I
So that was a
suspect-
common practice back then. to have a
Well, I think it was the only way to mark the location of the burial. There's no lots like exist today with pins and markers and everything else, so if you marked where the head was.
Oh,
you marked where the
okay,
foot
okay.
was, And then they would know in 6 months or a year or 10 years where the body was. Interestingly, back to where I started this conversation is, I think there's probably 50 to 100 burials in First Cemetery where there's either field stones or no markings whatsoever.
Really?
There's some areas where there are parallel depressions in the ground, sufficient size to look like they were a full-size burial with no markers whatsoever, whether they were wooden markers or whether
Probably
stones.
couldn't afford it.
Couldn't afford it.
Just put a wooden cross.
We've got stones like this one here on the left. This is the only marble stone in the cemetery, and it looks like somebody smashed it to pieces. I'll just cover a few more. Here's Captain Robert Taft, who served in the Revolution. His stone is readable, but so badly damaged it can't be repaired or reset. Hannah Palmer. You can see at the very bottom of the picture, the piece sticking out of the ground. And then a central piece with the top completely missing. Again, it can't be repaired. So that's that. So let me move on to the final report, the heart of all this, the restoration proposal. All right, I don't know if you can read this at home, but the restoration of First Cemetery, over the last 60 or so years, there have been several attempts to maintain and partially restore Upton's First Cemetery, originally referred to as South Cemetery, as Bradish was called North Cemetery. In 1980, a granite and bronze marker was placed at the cemetery, noting it was the site of the first meeting house. In 1981, a warrant article placed the cemetery in the hands of the Historical Commission for maintenance and restoration work to take place under our oversight. 1981 through 1987, virtually every year, Otis Inman, who was the commissioner of the Historic Commission, Dave Kennedy, and several others worked on cleaning the brush out of the cemetery. So I have to believe the cemetery was completely overgrown, at least the lower part. And they worked on it for like 6 or 7 straight years. In 1993, the cemetery was vandalized with 9 stones damaged. Of course, they didn't list what stones they were. It would have been nice to know, but I don't have that information. Other than the next note, 1995 to 98, the Historical Commission engaged with Fannin Lehrer Company, gravestone restoration specialists, to repair and reset about 20 stones. And I believe that some or most of the 9 were the ones that were repaired. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm assuming those are the ones that they fixed. They used money from the Ristine Fund, and that's a beautification fund, I believe. And I think they were severely limited with the amount of funding they could get to do restoration work. Because it appears from that book that we found in the cabinet downstairs at our pizza party, that big binder, that the repairs that they intended to do were never fully completed. So they did part of it, ran out of money, and that was the end of that. In the year 2000, an Eagle Scout worked with other scouts, clearing fallen trees, making stone wall repairs, and removing overgrowth. So again, it sounds like nobody was taking care of the cemetery, and every couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, mine's tough.
Pause for a moment, folks. I don't want to lose my laptop in the middle of this.
Yes.
Page. Well, you know, it's a brand new laptop, and I'm lucky to get 2 hours out of it.
Yeah.
It draws a lot of power. And the laptop I originally bought from Dell had an 8 to 10 hour battery, and the laptop lasted 3 weeks in failing.
Oh, yeah. What should do about that? Just.
They told me, just send it back, we'll give you money. Yeah. No discussion about evaluating it, fixing it, replacing it. So I think they knew they had a technical problem. I'm gonna lose the screen for a second while it resets. Okay. All right, so in 2000, an Eagle Scout worked to clear the cemetery again. In 2008, volunteers from the Sheriff's Department removed fallen trees again and restored some of the stone wall on the south side. 2010 or 11, a number of large pine trees were removed. In 2013-14, the commission began planning to remove trees and brush and met with a preservationist to explore cleaning and repair of gravestones. But no record was found that any of that work was ever done. Now, what I didn't do was go through the Historic Commission's monthly minutes, which maybe I'll find an answer to that question. All of this I pulled from the annual reports of the Historic Commission.
Okay.
I went back to 1978 or 9 and read every year up through 2024.
Wow.
It took about an hour and a half. It wasn't bad. In 2022, the cemetery commissioner, and that would be me, hired a landscaper to clear the overgrowth in the lower half of the cemetery. At that time, I was able to convince the DPW to agree to maintain it, not on a weekly basis, but at least twice yearly before Memorial Day and in the late summer. And the good news is they have told me they're going in there tomorrow with a crew to clean the cemetery as best they're going to. It won't be they're not going to rake it out or anything, but the mow it, weed whack it, and clean it up.
Great.
In 2024, I began discussions with this commission members to fully restore the cemetery, whatever that may entail at that time. In December and January, after this commission approved it, we hired Gary R. and Hellman and digitally surveyed the entire cemetery, identifying all the headstones and footstones, 227 of them, and including the marking of locations of many field stones where they appear to have been burials. The digital map was the first step to fully document the cemetery, its burials, and its bounds, with the subsequent map having been recorded for posterity with the Worcester County Registry of Deeds. I have cleaned many of the stones with D2, an environmentally friendly product, which is recommended for use by the Association of Gravestones. Gravestone Studies, I think it is technically. So I haven't counted them, but I've probably cleaned 35 or 40. Another 30 were probably okay, and I probably got 20 or so to go to finish the cleaning. But there's 227 stones with the footstones.
Does that stuff remove lichen and stuff, or?
It's theoretically kills it over time. You don't see an instant change. So it's scraping it off, it's cleaning it with water and a soft brush, and then spraying it with D2 and letting the D2 just sit. And
Oh, so you just spray it on, you don't wipe it off?
You don't wipe it off. You'd be wasted if you wipe it off, because it works over weeks and months supposedly. In 1965, H. Daniel Fay did a fair amount of work to fully document First Cemetery and Bradish Cemetery. All known burials from his records have been reviewed and are now documented in the book I showed you a few minutes ago, to include the location number from the Gary R. and Hellman map, the name of the individual, their parents, spouses, and spouses' parents, if known. A small number of errors from the early efforts have been reviewed and corrected. So I did find close to 10 or 12 errors in Daniel Fay's review of the individuals, who their parents were and stuff. Some of it he did not get right. But again, research today is easier, more records are available than he potentially had back then. So I won't knock the man. He did a great job to do what he did.
Yeah.
So in this new document, each headstone and footstone has been measured and graded from poor to fair to good to excellent, with notations of any cracks, breaks, or missing pieces. In 1904, when Upton's vital records were transcribed and published, the gravestones in First Cemetery would have been transcribed as part of the work to publish its vital records. An effort to find those records needs to be conducted in the town's clerk's archives in case those records reveal burials where the headstones may have existed then but later have been lost. I've talked to Denise a couple times about it, but I have to find time to come over and go through all the boxes because they're not marked as true records in any of them. Just hoping that the work the townspeople did, or whoever did, to document all of the births, marriages, and deaths in 1903 in order to publish them in 1904, I would think those records were saved, but who knows? And if they do, they might reveal one or two burials where I found one or two headstones that have broken off of the ground and there's no fragments, so you never know who got buried there. Maybe we can resolve one or two of them. And we have the most frustrating headstone in the whole cemetery that says, erected to the memory of Benjamin. And it's not in Upton's vital records in 1904.
I think I've seen that one,
Mr.
actually.
Fay found the stone that says erected to the memory of Benjamin. We may forever not know who Benjamin was. All right, so get to the heart of this whole thing. As a result of all this work, approximately 16 headstones are deemed to be unrepairable, with several of them either missing or with just fragments remaining. Some are badly broken with missing pieces, others simply broken and unrepairable. Another 9 footstones were found to be too far gone and require replacements. So the current plan, or the current proposal for this evening, is remove approximately 16 pine trees that are encroaching on graves. So yesterday and the day before, I went over there and I put a ribbon on the 16 trees, a red ribbon on the 16 trees denoting we would like them removed, and a yellow ribbon on 11 trees where I would like the stumps removed after the trees are removed. I've spoken to the DPW director about it, and there are steps that would have to be taken. So it's only part of our proposal at the moment. 2 of the 16 trees are dead and at least 10 are encroaching on the head and footstones, while the rest will reduce maintenance and open up the lower cemetery, as well as prevent further damage from fallen branches. 11 stumps are also marked for removal. Number 2, I would propose filling holes and ruts to improve the safety and increase maintainability in the cemetery. So hopefully more of the cemetery could be mowed with a stand-up mower. And right now, basically none of that cemetery can be mowed with a mower. It primarily has to be done by hand with weed whackers. And I think that's part of the reason why they're reluctant to get over there too quickly and clear it. Number 3, repairing the 4 to maybe 6 headstones where it might be possible to repair them with a proper conservation epoxy repairs. I was contemplating doing it a couple of weeks ago, but after talking to a couple of people, I'm not so sure I want to do it. Something to be decided down the road. Some of these stones are broken with clean edges and look like they should be repairable. Number 4, replace 14 to 16 headstones that are too badly damaged to be saved with an equivalently carved replacement stone. Number 5, replace approximately 9 footstones that are too badly damaged to be saved with equivalently carved replacement stones. Number 6, plant 4 to 8 flowering trees, like dogwoods or something equivalent, to add some shade, but mostly to improve the look and feel of the site. So it's a more attractive cemetery to visit, and people would enjoy going there. Installation of a sign near the entrance using the digital map that Gary Aaron Howland created, surrounded by 22 pages out of the booklet that I just showed you with the Revolutionary War soldiers. So it would be a 4-foot by 6-foot sign, where the center of the sign would be the land layout and the location of the stones for Gary Aaron Howland's digital map. Surrounded by a page on each of the 22 Revolutionary War soldiers with a title at the top. And I do have a picture of that somewhere that I try and bring up after I'm done this. Russ and I went down to Signs Plus last week, and they gave us a quote for $750 to create the sign and place it in the cemetery, which I thought would cost 5 times that. So very competitive. Number 8, installation of granite or another appropriate material to mark the approximate location of the first meeting house as shown on the digital map. So a concept of putting into the ground at ground surface level, so mowers could go over it, a stone or permanent feature to show people where the first meeting house was tentatively located. Only an idea I had. The next one, creation of walking paths through the cemetery with the appropriate materials. Again, just a concept at this point. That was something I had proposed earlier. If we could find an Eagle Scout or somebody willing to do a project that could undertake something like that. Number 10, had a thought of installing a marker to commemorate those burials, possibly several more Revolutionary soldiers where no headstones exist. Catherine proposed this last week. I thought it was a great idea, but we need to explore further the list of the 100 or so deaths in Upton's records that must be buried somewhere, and who some of those people are before we, really go ahead and try and create a marker to commemorate those people. But I think that's a great idea, and I don't think it would cost too much to put a marker in to commemorate the unmarked dead or unmarked soldiers or something. So we can continue to discuss that. Number 11, installing a gate so the access of vehicles can be restricted and to give the cemetery a better appearance of limited access. It wouldn't actually prevent anything, but it would make somebody think twice, whereas the bar that's there right now is rather useless. And I did notice that there is a gate at Heritage Park that looks very inexpensive and would probably do the purpose. John Johnson of DPW was going to try and get me a cost estimate for what a gate like that would cost if you put it First Cemetery. So what all that means in terms of dollar estimates is now on the screen. So you've got removal of pine trees and stumps. Dennis is going to ask Stumpy's Tree Service, who does the town work, to get me an estimate to remove the trees and the stumps. We originally thought 10 to 12,000 until he went over there and looked at the site, and of course, 60% of the trees I'm asking to be removed cannot be done with a crane. Can't reach them.
Hmm.
So they would have to be done by climbing and cutting, and then how do you get the stumps, the trunks and the logs out of the cemetery? And so we don't know. The whole tree thing, there's probably 5 or 6 that would be a non-issue. They could bring a crane in and remove them. But there are several others that would have to be done by hand, and this may be put a price on each tree, and then we can discuss how much can be afforded later on, and maybe it's not 16 trees, maybe it's 8 trees. I don't know. So anyways, cost estimate that I put on it is mid-20s, 25,000. Filling the holes and ruts, potentially finding a contractor or landscaper who would go in there with a truckload or 2 or 3 of loom and start filling holes and leveling as much as can be leveled without damaging the overall nature of the cemetery. So it have to be done under supervision. Don't fill this hole because it looks like a burial, but fill these over here.
That's a good point, right?
Stuff like that. And there's a few mounds and a few stumps that were taken out years ago, that maybe those could be leveled again to improve the whole maintainability and look of the cemetery. Then you get to the heart of the matter. So I've spoken with 3 companies. I spoke with Whitensville Monument initially. I've been talking to him all winter long, and he's proposed a dull gray granite stone rather than slate. I'll cover that in a minute. And he told me probably in the mid 2000s per stone, but I don't believe that would get us the carvings around the words. It would get us the words, it would get us the stone, but it wouldn't get us the urn, the willow tree, the winged angels, and the scroll work down the sides. The detail of trying to replace a historic stone. I then talked to a gal named Karen Sprague out of North Situate, Rhode Island, who runs a stone carving business. She called me last week and she told me right up front, before we have any further discussion, very, very nice lady, we talked with her for almost an hour. She said, you're looking at between $10,000 and $20,000 per stone, and she couldn't possibly handle the whole project. And I said, it's highly unlikely we would ever agree to spend that kind of money with the number of stones we need. If we had 1 stone, it would be a whole nother discussion, but we've got 25 headstones and footstones that need to be replaced. So 10 to 20,000, but I'm sure some of them costing 10 or 12, and some of them costing 16, 17, 18, or even 20, some of the more elaborate ones. I talked to a 3rd company whose name I cannot memorize. It's a large Italian name. He's out of Bristol, Connecticut. He's got a pretty interesting website, and he has given me a quote, which I didn't even ask for, on the entire project. For approximately $75,000, he would recreate all 25 stones and repair the 4 or 5 damaged ones, made out of dull gray granite. But he would give us all the detail, the urns and the willow trees and the angel wings, whichever the stones have, the scroll work around to get. He would give us all that, including all of the carving. I do not know for a fact, because I haven't discussed it with him yet, but I suspect he's using a sandblasting honing procedure to create most of it, and then he's touching it up with hand chisels to make it look original, which is basically what I think we want to accomplish.
Angelicola?
Angelicola, yes. He quoted 75,000 approximately to do it all in granite and 105,000 to do it in slate. And the reason is that slate is less available, more difficult to get quality stone, and large enough to do the stones that we need in volume. He says getting 1 or 2 is one thing, getting 16 or 20. So it is a much more expensive product. That comment is supported by Whitensville Monument, who also told me you're looking at least $2,000 more for a slate stone than a granite stone. And I think Angelicola told me initially, before he quoted the whole project, something like 3,800 would be a ballpark for a granite stone, and 5,800 would be a ballpark for a slate stone. So So I think unfortunately, at least in my mind, slate is out of the question, but the Delray granite looks the same as several of the newer slate stones at First Cemetery. You wouldn't necessarily be able to tell the difference. And I think they would stand up better to vandalism, I think, than the slate would. The slate is somewhat more of a fragile product. All right, so to continue, so I've got a $65,000 ballpark estimate to replace the 14 to 16 headstones, a $20,000 estimate to replace the 9 footstones. All of this would be subject to probably a formal request for quotation because they exceed the $50,000 state guideline for procurement. So they might be less. He told me 75,000. I've got 85,000 in here. Planting trees and shrubbery, I pulled a number out of my head and said $5,000 to get someone to come out and plant 5 or 6 or 7 flowering trees. $1,000 for the signboard. We have a quote for $750. Mark the meeting house location with granite blocks or something in the ground. Might be able to do that for $500 or $600. I put 2,000 in here because I don't know the cost of that. Walking path materials, have no idea. I put 2,000 in. Adding a gate is the last item, which might be done for $500 or $600 or $1,000. I don't know. I put 2,500 in. Hopefully by the end of next week, I have numbers on the tree removals and on the gate. That these numbers could be modified and adjusted to whatever the DPW tells me they can be done for. And the last item in here, which is next to last on this list, is burial markets for soldiers and unmarked burials. 3 years ago, as a Legion member, I asked Joe Layden if he could purchase 50 flag holding grave markers, the things you put the flags in at the cemetery next to the gravestones. If he could buy us 50 new ones for U.S. veterans, and he had some slush money at the time, and he bought us 50 for about $1,300, I think it cost. We asked him again a month ago, and the answer was, I don't have any extra money, I can't do it. So I had gotten a quote from Carrot Top Industries, who's about the only one out there competitive. And the VFW agreed at their meeting 2 weeks ago, they would purchase the standard U.S. veteran grave markers. They'd buy a dozen of them, just to make sure we had them for new veterans being buried in our cemeteries. Russ and I borrowed about 17 or 18 of the last ones that the Legion had, and we took them over to First Cemetery and we put them on all the Revolutionary War veterans' graves last week. So I asked Carrot Top, do you make a Revolutionary War marker? And the answer was, yes, we do. And interestingly, it's exactly the same cost as the standard U.S. veterans marker made out of aluminum. So what I was going to ask this commission to purchase 30 or 40 aluminum veterans markers for our cemeteries in town in general has become a more specific question. If this commission will agree to buy 30 Revolutionary War markers to be placed at First and Radish cemeteries. And then we will return the 15 or 16 or 17 that we borrowed last week back to the Legion for use in Lakeview and Maplewood for future burials. So I have a quote for, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's upper 800s plus freight, so it'd be a little over $900 to buy 30 of these to use for our veterans' graves. So before I finish my discussion on this whole restoration plan, I would like to make a motion to purchase 30 Revolutionary War aluminum grave markers at a cost of about $925 with freight. Do I have a second? Any questions?
I'd like a discussion, Joan. Where's money coming from?
Well, we have several accounts with money in it.
I was going to say, why don't we use that $1,000 that we get every year and never use?
I'm okay with that.
I mean,
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
yeah, I mean, it sits there and never is touched.
If you gotta
You
give
might
it
as
back.
well-
It's
I think
there.
it's a good a good
Well-
use for.
Beginning of the year, because we don't spend it.
Yeah, Joe,
Once we spend it,
finish what you were saying, Joe?
Joan, are you there?
I am, but I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, can you continue, can you continue with what you were saying?
I just suggested that we use the $1,000 that we receive every year from the town to pay for the markers. I mean, it's there, it's sitting there, and I don't think it's a big deal to use it.
How much, I'm sorry, Ed, how much money was it supposed to be? I need it for the notes.
I can get you an exact number. I got the quote on my computer here somewhere. It's like $867 plus freight, so it's gonna be like $925 or something like that.
And what are we planning to pay if we have to pay the Historical Society out of? Do we have a pot? I just don't want us to commit twice to paying money out of a pot that's our discretionary fund.
What are we paying the Historical Society for?
That $200 that we don't know if we can pay them or not.
For the April 19th ceremony they held.
Oh,
I think
Oh.
Craig needs to find out whether we can do it or not. And then you can potentially ask, does it matter which fund we use to pay it? If Joe says we can do it. I think he's gonna tell you can't do it, but
We can't do it?
We have,
I think he's gonna tell you you can't. but-
we have another fund too.
Yeah, there's another fund, John, there that we've got some money in. That's three or four.
Call it people make donations to the historical commission to use it as disposal.
yeah, that has about $900 in it.
So that would be a perfect fund to use for a donation purpose to the,
What we call it, slush fund, not slush.
not a gift fund, is it? A gift fund or a donation?
Gift funds, yeah, gift funds, that's a good word. Revolving account, used to call it revolving
Yeah, the
account.
revolving account.
all right, so I've got a motion on the table. It's been seconded to allow purchase of 30 Revolutionary War gray markers. How many are in favor?
Well, the
I'm in
motion-
favor. I just want to know who the second is because I couldn't see it.
Catherine, for the article, can you just say where it's gonna come from too?
Yeah, I'll write where it's going to come from. If you have decided where it's going to come from, I couldn't tell that there was a consensus.
Is there, so what is that called, a revolving
Used to be
fund?
called Revolving.
Catherine, I think it's called a revolving
It's a
fund.
revolving fund, and I've got about 925 total, with a tilde, very approximate. And who was the second?
I'll second it.
Russ
Okay.
is it.
Oh, Russ seconded it.
Okay. I'm in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Joan, aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, thank you, everyone. I will email Joe Layden in the morning because he's our procurement agent. I'll send him the quote and ask if he executes the purchase order for those 30 units, and I'll let Carrot Top know that their quote's got to be modified because they keep pushing me to buy 48 regular ones and 30 Revolutionary War. I'm only going to buy one of them, so. All right, I think that's good. And then we can return the, I don't know, exact number, 15, 16, 17, back to the general use pile for the Lakeview and Maplewood burials in the future. All right, so if we go back to this proposal for the restoration of the cemetery, and if we take the $2,000 out that I put, no, I didn't put that in here. I'm sorry. So it's 137,500 is the estimate today before we get hard quotes on anything. So what my proposal is that if anybody has any questions on this, we should start there, but we vote on whether the commission approves this to continue. And then we decide on a couple of representatives to meet with the CPC to discuss with them funding to do this project. So are there any questions, any discussions, any observations on this body of work here in this proposal.
CPC would want the numbers firmed up a little better than what we have here. Some of these, I know some of these are just,
Well, the heart and soul of it is the 85,000 for stones.
stones, yes.
And that's about as firm as it's gonna get.
Yeah,
We get
yeah.
down and say, we go to an RFQ and see if it changes a little bit. The removal of trees and stumps, Dennis hopefully will have me something by the end of next week. And that will firm that up. And that's probably 85% of the money here for us.
Yeah, the walking paths, meeting house locations.
If I have to take those out, I can take those
Yeah,
out.
those are kind of secondary.
Yeah, those are kind of secondary. The gate, maybe John will have me a number on a gate by next week, and that'll just leave 2 or 3 of these. Can always take a trip down to Western Nurseries and talk to them about what it would cost to plant 6 or 7 or 8 trees. I think I already know.
Did you have a thought with regard to like staging things? If we have to break it up into pieces in order to get it funded over time, like is that the order that you would want to fund it in?
My answer to that, that can go 2 ways if we're confronted with that. And I would certainly anticipate that CPC might say, yeah, we kind of like the idea, but we need to split it up over a couple of years. I put this in order of how I think it should proceed. For instance, the very first thing I'd want to do is get the trees out of there. So the less risk of damaging any work we would do is get the trees out first, and then get somebody in there with a bobcat and start filling in holes and ruts. Once we've got that done, then we have a pretty safe environment to do any of the rest of the work. We could certainly prioritize which headstones got done first. And just off the top of my head, it would be the 5 Revolutionary War soldiers and or the stones that are virtually completely missing or completely shattered. If there's one stuck in the ground that's broken and needs to be replaced, we would do that last. So that can be accomplished. I don't know if we need to do that to discuss this with the CPC though, Catherine, but have that in the back pocket. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I just wanted to have it as a, a thing to think about, like if we have to pace it, that we don't have to go to CPC and be like, give us $137,000 or nothing, like we can break it up into chunks. And I totally agree with you about the trees. The trees have been, even over like the past 150 years, the biggest threat to that gravestone, because even in old stuff, they're talking about, oh yeah, branches fall off and they break our old tombstones. And it's like 100 years ago, they're already talking about it. And I think you're right that that's the biggest danger, and it prevents you from really working in there safely because the ground's so uneven.
I mean, in a perfect world, there's probably another 20 trees I'd like to take down, but in the real world, it's never going to happen. That they're all mature pines. Dennis agreed with that. They're all fully grown, mature. They're all over 100 feet, and they all pose a significant risk for anything in that cemetery. You get a huge windstorm or another northeaster in the winter, you could have 3 or 4 of those pines come down. The good news is that area of the cemetery is rather sparse with stones, but the bad news is that they're the oldest stones. So yes, Catherine, I would have ready for discussion that this could be split into a 2-year project. And of course, we could always go further if necessary, if we could get the funding, but we couldn't get the funding in 1 or 2 years. This could be broken up into a multi-year project. If we got the trees down, the holes and ruts filled, a sign put up, I'd say we accomplished a significant task, and then chip away at the replacement of stones. But I would suspect the cost of stones will continue to rise.
Do you think we'll get pushback about planting the trees if we're removing trees? Will they say, why are you putting trees in if you're taking them out?
Well, I think there's an enormous difference between a 115-foot pine tree and a 12-foot dogwood tree.
Yeah, if you plant like little flowering trees like redbuds and dogwoods, you could even do something that's like
you know, a native and therefore like value added from an environmental perspective and also not going to grow to be absolutely massive and, you know, destroy everything with its roots and branches. I feel like there could be something to be said for that.
Yeah,
Yep.
makes sense.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna make a motion to accept this proposal as prepared, and that we nominate two representatives to contact the CPC and meet with them at hopefully the next meeting in early June to present this proposal and request funding for the project. Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Go in second.
Okay, Joe seconded it. Any discussion? Anybody else have any other thoughts, dangers? I don't have the answer to all the questions here. Dennis gave me a lecture, which he did 3 years ago, about removing live trees. Gave me a whole lecture. He said the dead ones are the ones that are risking your grave. I can remove without talking to anybody. But if you've got a tree out in the middle, which there are several on this proposal, he said that's a whole nother discussion where people might be upset and it might raise a concern. And I said, well, my argument, and the only reason I'm asking, is that every one of these trees risks damage in that cemetery. They shouldn't be there in the first place, and I think they're all sprouts that grew up when nobody was looking back 100 years ago. And here we are with- All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you very, very much. Hopefully this, in another year or 2 or 3, we've got a reasonably beautiful historic cemetery, because doing the genealogies of these people, it's fascinating to find out where they all came from, because only a handful of them were here in Upton. They came in from Wenham and Chelmsford and Rentham and Rowley and Cumberland, Rhode Island, and Medway and Medfield, etc. So the last comment on this was, my thinking over the last month or so working on this is to turn this into a coffee table book that maybe people in the town of Upton would be interested in purchasing for their coffee table or for a discussion piece, centerpiece, to complement the history of Upton. So I'm open to any thoughts and suggestions about printers or publishers that could do a color book like this at some point of about 150 pages.
Could you do it yourself on FrameMaker?
Yeah, so Society printed a book, the 1935 book.
Hmm.
They printed.
I could print it.
They published it. It took a fair amount of work.
I know Ellen's making a book too. I don't know how Ellen Arno, I don't know how she's gonna produce that.
I mean, I've got 2 publishers I've used, 3 publishers I've used over the years on my books, but you're talking $600 to $800 minimum just to
That
get
sounds
them
cheap.
to print it. Well, it is, but probably last book was $2,000.
How many did you make? Just one?
I bought 10 books. It cost me $2,000 to buy 10 books.
Wow.
Yeah, and I will never get that money back.
No.
Now, this one here, I would want to make $1 or $2 on it, or at least break even. I don't know if we could get Patrick to put something, not ready yet, put something on Facebook, advertising it beforehand, and see if we could get early idea of people willing to buy a first copy of the book. Maybe that we could do something like that. I am a little dismayed though, Patrick, that I believe one of my emails 3 or 4 weeks ago, I asked that you put on our Facebook page looking for volunteers to help clean up First Cemetery before Memorial Day. And I don't think I've ever seen it go on Facebook. So could I ask what happened with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an apologies on my part. I thought that I uploaded the link, like I did a schedule send, and it just didn't get posted.
All right, Craig, back to you.
Let's see, what else? Social media updates. Do you have, Patrick, any updates for the social media?
Not at this time.
Okay. the next item on the agenda is the Upton's 300th anniversary. I don't think that we have any updates for that. I know Joan's been traveling in Europe, so I doubt you have anything, Joan, but
No, I don't.
well, sounds good. I'm sure that's the last thing you think about when you're traveling around pubs in Dublin. Okay, so are there any other topics that people want to bring up that weren't anticipated?
I got one,
Okay.
if I can find it. Of course, I'm not gonna find it. Again, the listserv, mass listserv. email.
Yes.
There was an interesting question asked this afternoon. It had to do with the town of Dennis, wanting to know if any other commissions have done anything with giving awards to people in town who have contributed significantly to preserving, creating the historical infrastructure of the town, like builders that may have built something that models the infrastructure, the historic nature of the town, homeowners that have maybe added to or restored their house and implemented a historic feature. Somebody that has undone work to their house that destroyed the historic nature and then returned it to its early nature. They're coming up with an awards program.
Oh, that's nice.
And as a side note, Russ and I drove by 12 Stoddard Street last week.
Oh, yeah.
I was absolutely stunned.
You did a wonderful
The
job.
building is completely out
Yep,
and it looks beautiful.
it does.
It fits into the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah,
He did everything we asked him to do.
yep.
And maybe a letter to him at some point might be worth doing.
I agree.
Even
That's a
though the
good
way
idea.
it started off wasn't so good.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's a
He
good
seemed
idea.
Like a nice fella too.
He did seem very nice. Yeah, he did. Yeah,
I don't know where
that's a good idea.
the email trail went to. It's disappeared on me.
What did he suggest for awards?
I-
Just like a paper thing? I'm sorry, John, what were you gonna say?
I had a comment about something other than what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
John, let me read the email. I just found it. Hello all. We at the Dartmouth Historical Commission have observed other towns that have successfully built awards recognition programs centered on successful preservation and restoration in their towns. We're looking for ideas and best practices on this from other town historians. We're thinking of an annual event, an annual award, either given to builders, architects, or homeowners, or all three as they are a team behind projects that either, number one, expand their homes, civic buildings in a way that embrace the original architecture and details. Number two, or renew in a way that throws off prior renovations that have been poorly done in favor of a reset on the original architectural style of the structure. We'd appreciate hearing from other towns, etc. And then I think one gentleman responded that said they've done something. Let me get the middle email here. Jim Boone from Springfield Preservation Trust has given annual awards for 40 years. We do restoration project and stewardship awards for those who have cared for property for a long time, both residential and commercial. We also have a lifetime preservation award for a person who has been active in preservation forever. Happy to talk to anyone interested in more information about how we do it, etc. If you look at Springfield Preservation Trust on Facebook, you can see our ceremony and recipients from our May 8th event. And I should probably tell everyone at the meeting that I was invited to the Grange meeting 2 weeks ago and asked to do a discussion on the restoration of their building to the state Grange offices. And they turned the tables on me and gave me a civic, what was it called? A public steward award or
You
something.
certainly
like that.
deserve it.
Yeah, you certainly
Yeah,
deserve
it
it,
was
for sure.
So I was a little floored by that, but it was nice. But I gave them a nice talk about the restoration of their building they should be proud of, so.
That's wonderful.
it was good. So I just thought that email was interesting thought for something that maybe
Yeah,
we could do at some point, is do an annual award to somebody in town
Yeah,
to try and create more awareness of the historic.
that's a good idea.
preservation.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy at the end of South Street who said that he redid his roof and cedar shingles. Was that, or was that what you, Russ? Were you telling me about that? Somebody was telling me about somebody who had a really old house and they put,
Oh.
no, maybe it wasn't cedar.
We're talking about
Elm Street, that's what I'm look at Elm Street.
Elm Street. Oh, okay.
Did you go that day we went over to Elm Street?
Yeah.
No, well, they replaced their roof with a
With
metal.
a metal?
No, I was talking about, you were telling me about some guy who restored it with like original cedar shingles or something.
The only possible one was the Sadler House.
Sadler, yeah.
On Mendon Street. I used to work with the guy that owned it.
Yeah.
And he personally replaced the roof.
Yeah.
Back in the early 80s with a cedar shaped roof, and that roof looks as good today as when he replaced it 45 years ago.
Yeah, that's a lot of work to
So
do
the
that.
one in Elm Street, I was shocked when she said, you know, we've got to replace it, it might stop leaking. That roof looked to me like it would last another 100 years. On
Yeah.
Elm Street. They put a metal roof on.
Well, maybe the guy on Minden Street deserves an award for doing that.
Yeah, well, he's long gone. He went to
Oh.
Canada somewhere.
He's not in town anymore?
His,
Okay.
his in-laws bought him a Corvette and he moved up to where his in-laws lived in Canada 40 years ago. So
Oh.
I don't remember his name.
Okay.
So just an idea, but if anybody's interested in the idea, I would ask if Donna or Joan or Patrick or somebody would want to pick that up as a side committee and come up with ways we could implement a simple award 3 months
Yeah.
a year.
That's a great idea.
Something not too tedious and not too painful, but it would be a matter of having your eyes and ears open to who's doing something that's worthy of getting an award from us.
Absolutely. And along that vein, but different, that Linda, we want to talk about that Linda email that we got, or were you saying that we wanted to bring that up or want to think about that?
If you want to send a response, then we should talk about it. If you think you can just ignore it, then I think you're playing with fire. She wants to push all these things. She should come to the meetings and participate.
Yeah,
And what she's doing is just lighting a fire, and she did it with me, and now she's doing it with you.
yeah.
And I would just come to the meeting, Linda, and share your opinions on things. I mean, I think she's got the right heart, but
Yeah.
You just gotta be careful. You've gotta be careful, with everything that you say and do in the public. You've gotta respect the fact that you're on a commission here, and they
Yep.
both do. And then we've gotta be sensitive to the audience. You never know who's listening and, who's got a different opinion, so.
Yeah, I think I need email sensitivity training. Wonder if there's a course for that.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn unless somebody's got something.
Hold on. I never got a chance to say what I was gonna say.
Oh, right. Yeah, go ahead, Joan. Sorry.
Right. All this discussion on the First Cemetery, I hope that many of you can show up on Monday morning at about 9 o'clock on Memorial Day at the First Cemetery where we honor the Revolutionary War soldiers that are buried there. And I don't know if I'll be giving the speech, but somebody's going to be giving a speech about Reverend Fish and the Revolutionary War soldiers that are buried there. So be there at 9 o'clock Monday morning.
Where does
Right
it start? Where does the whole thing start, Joan?
It's a car parade.
It's a what?
It's a car parade. We take the car over Lakeview. We do a 10-minute ceremony at Lakeview to start the parade.
Okay.
It's not the parade, start the ceremony. And then we drive from Lakeview to Maplewood. We visit Russ's father's grave, and then we visit Russ's grandfather's grave. We do a ceremony and a gun salute at each one. Then we get in our cars, we drive over to First Cemetery, and we do the same thing at First Cemetery. And then we break and we go to Memorial School and wait for 10 o'clock when the parade starts.
Okay.
So it's
So when does the whole thing start though? And where?
8 o'clock.
Lakeview Cemetery, 8 o'clock.
You at Lakeview. Okay.
Quarter of it, good on quarter of it.
Okay.
Parking is limited.
Parking.
So we march into, the Legion marches and the Legion of VFW members march into Lakeview
Okay.
and do a ceremony at the flag there in the center of the cemetery.
Okay. I'll try to make it. I might be down the Cape, but if I'm not, Oh, nice, wonderful.
That town is
Okay.
buying 100 geraniums. Right
I'll
around
make a,
town.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It was quick.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
All right,
right.
thank you, everyone.
That's right, that time.
Yes.